Hi guys, Rachael Cook, Doctor of Audiology at Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And in today's video, I'm answering all of your questions about foam hearing protection. Coming up. As an audiologist, one thing that I know a lot about is protecting your hearing. It is so important and so many people take it for granted until it is way too late. Now, there are many different types of hearing protection out on the market. Some is custom fit, some is non-custom, some go in the ear, some go over the ears. Today, specifically, we are talking about in the ear foam hearing protection or foam earplugs. Now, before I jump into all of your fantastic questions about foam hearing protection, I'd like to take a moment to discuss noise reduction rating and the OSHA standards for safe noise exposure limits. These will kind of help provide a little bit of framework for the answers to the questions moving forward, so don't skip this part. Starting with NRR. This stands for noise reduction rating. NRR is a measure of the effectiveness of a hearing protection device to reduce noise levels. Noise reduction ratings can span anywhere from 0 decibels of protection, which would not be a great rating, all the way up to 30 decibels of hearing protection. Obviously, the higher the NRR, the higher the amount of protection that hearing protection device should be providing, so long as it is being placed and worn appropriately. Now, why is noise reduction rating important? Well, because we as humans love to do noisy things. Do you like to ride motorcycles? Have you ever been to a concert? Do you use any sort of power tools, maybe lawn tools, even some type of tools that you use in the home, like carpet cleaning systems, that when exposed to those loud levels of sound over a certain duration of time, they can actually be damaging to your hearing and cause permanent hearing loss. Just how long can you listen to these loud levels of sounds before they become damaging to your hearing? Certain regulatory boards, such as OSHA or the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, have put out certain guidelines elaborating a bit more on safe loud noise exposure levels. OSHA has even put together these handy dandy graphs that talk to you about the level of the sound and just how long you can listen to it. Now, in general, about 90 decibels is a sound level that you can listen to for about 8 hours before it becomes potentially damaging to your hearing. And every time you go up in a 5 decibel increment level from 90 decibels, it halves the amount of time that you can listen to that sound safely. So for example, moving that 90 decibel sound up to a 95 decibel sound takes your safe listening time from 8 hours down to 4 hours. To prevent this permanent hearing loss from taking place, we've got to use some form of hearing protection to bring that noise level down. Now, we get dozens, if not hundreds, of comments and questions on the Dr. Cliff YouTube channel every single day. And so I'd like to take some time to kind of sift through some of those comments and questions. And in particular, I was watching Dr. Cliff's video on using foam hearing protection. And man, there were some fantastic questions in the comment section that I just couldn't wait to answer. Now, before I dive right on into answering all of your questions, please take a moment to hit the like button to bring videos like these to a much wider audience. While you're at it, it'll only take a second more to hit that subscribe button with notification bell so that you never miss any one of our newly released videos. We really appreciate it, and now away we go. All right, this user asked the question, can I use it for my 6-month-old baby? That is a great question, and unfortunately the answer to that question is no. Foam hearing protection is already notoriously difficult to place in your ears correctly, which gives a lot of people a false sense of security that they're protecting their hearing when they're really not using the foam hearing protection as it was intended and placing it right. This is even harder to do on a baby or on an infant, as their ear canals are incredibly small. And as that foam expands, it would be very likely to cause your child some pressure and discomfort. And so they may be pretty fussy with that. That being said, I would definitely recommend the use of over-the-ear hearing protection for all children until they start getting a little bit larger of an ear canal size. Probably around the age of 10 or so is when they'd be able to use most foam hearing protection that's on the market today. The next question asks, is this better than covering our ears with our hands? And the answer to this question is Maybe. Some websites suggest that the noise reduction rating, or NRR, of covering your ears with your hands or sticking your fingers in your ears is actually 25 decibels, which is not too shabby. The problem is that most people are unlikely to keep their fingers or their hands in the correct placement to maintain that seal and to preserve that noise reduction. So it's not necessarily that it's a bad idea to use rather instantaneously, but for long-term events, you're not going to be able to keep up with it for that long. In addition, there are many loud noises that go above and beyond safe listening levels, that even 25 decibels of reduction isn't going to be enough to take them down to a safe level, like gunfire. So this is not a very reliable hearing protection option. It's good in a quick pinch, but if you can bring or be responsible for actual hearing protection, foam plugs or over-the-ear muffs, or both, you're going to be much better off. Okay, this next question caused me to have to do a little bit of research, but what I found out was super interesting. So this viewer asks, I want to use earplugs, but when I put them in, I feel like I want to vomit. Is this normal? First off, I'm sorry that that's your experience, because that cannot be very pleasant. Second, I don't know if I would characterize it as normal, but there's definitely a reason for why that is. The vagus nerve, which is a cranial nerve that's responsible for a bunch of super important bodily functions, also has a branch that runs through the outer ear called Arnold's nerve. Now, in general, this is just another nerve like any other nerve in your body that just does what it's supposed to do from a sensory standpoint. But in about 2% of healthy adults, myself included, hitting this Arnold's nerve can trigger a major cough reflex. And in an even smaller portion of adults, it can actually cause a vomiting reflex. I'm not sure that there's much that I can say that can make that better. You may be better off using over-the-ear hearing protection, because in-the-ear hearing protection just really is not going to be your jam. This next question asks, do all foam earplugs provide the same protection? And the answer to that question is no. This is again where the idea of the noise reduction rating comes into play. That will be signaled on the side of whatever packaging of product that you purchase, and it'll vary anywhere from, again, 12 decibels or so all the way up to 30 decibels or so. This also really relies on proper insertion techniques. A lot of people do not know how to put foam protection in correctly, which means that they're wearing them improperly, and there's the potential for damaging levels of sound to be leaking in through those gaps. The second part of their question asks, how many times can you reuse the same earplug? And technically, none. It's a one and done type of thing when we're talking about disposable foam hearing protection. The reason for that being is that foam is definitely susceptible to getting bends and folds in it that you do not want causing gaps in your hearing protection the next time you use it. Additionally, they do get covered in things like earwax and skin secretions, which makes them a bit of a docking station for bacteria that we do not want to keep reintroducing to our external ear canal. So for that reason, it's in your best interest to use disposable foam hearing protection one time only. This next user says, helpful, but what if after a few times they get soft and become rubbery? That's going to go back to the last question that I just answered, which is one and done. Once you use your disposable foam hearing protection, it's time to toss it out. This next one isn't necessarily a question, it's more of a comment, but it kind of made me giggle. They say, for what do you need earplugs in concerts? If you don't want to hear the music, then why go to a concert at all? And honestly, I'm with you on that. I think the miscommunication that's happening here is just that if you wear earplugs, you're not going to be able to hear anything at all, and that is definitely not true. The fact of the matter is that most concerts, if not all concerts, depending on where you're sitting, can cause permanent hearing loss because they are just so loud. For example, when I went to a Taylor Swift concert here in Phoenix, the noise ratings that I was getting on my sound level meter app on my phone were right around 110 decibels. And per OSHA standards, I could only listen safely at that level for a 30-minute time period. Now, I don't know if you've heard about Taylor Swift's concerts recently, but they run 3 hours and 15 minutes. By the time that concert was over, I would have been nearly 7 times over my safe loud noise exposure limits. But I was not about to let that happen. I may have let that happen earlier in college when I didn't know the risks, but now that I know the risks, I wore foam hearing protection with a 25 decibel NRR throughout the entire concert. That took my exposure down from 110 decibels to 85 decibels, which you can listen at safely for a 16-hour duration. And guess what? I heard every song, I heard every lyric. It did not detract from the experience. It just was a bit softer so that I knew I was protecting my hearing throughout the entire event. I also have pretty bothersome tinnitus, primarily in my right ear, and I knew for certain that at those types of exposure levels, there was no way I was walking out of there without seeing a noticeable increase in my tinnitus if I didn't wear hearing protection. So I love concerts, I love music, and I wear my hearing protection. This next one certainly isn't a question, it's more of a comment, but they write, "It's taken me a year to get it right. If you lick them first, they slide right in." We aren't licking our earplugs, right? Right? Oh boy. This next viewer asks, are the Howard Leight earplugs good for protecting your ears in loud clubs? And you bet your bottom dollar they are. Most foam hearing protection on the market has just about the same noise reduction rating across the board, but I would say that the Howard Leight earplugs actually seem to have the highest noise reduction rating out of all of the foam protection. So yes, in this case, in loud clubs, loud music, party type of scenes, you want to have the highest amount of noise reduction rating that you can have, and that's a fantastic option. This next viewer asks, can I keep the foam protection overnight in my ear? It's not going to mess up the pressure inside, right? This is a good question as well. There's actually no real negatives or risks to wearing foam hearing protection overnight. In fact, there are a lot of individuals that wear it, whether they live in noisier areas or apartment buildings, maybe their dogs bark, maybe their partner snores a lot, who knows? Not a bad idea. It's definitely not going to mess the pressure up inside of your middle ear space or anything like that. The biggest drawback that I see with using foam hearing protection overnight is mostly just that a lot of people do find them uncomfortable over extended periods of time. That's because this foam, although you squish it up and you put it in your ear, it expands, and as it expands, it puts a lot of pressure on the external ear canal, and depending on how long you're wearing them for and the size and the shape of your ear canal, that could cause some discomfort. Other than discomfort, however, you are most definitely safe to wear those overnight if you'd like. This next question asks, when it comes to barking dogs, do foam earplugs do the work, or is a different type of earplug required to block that type of noise? Foam earplugs should do just fine for barking dogs. It's definitely still possible that you'll hear some of the barking. It'll be very difficult to take a sound that high of a level and reduce it down entirely to the point that you no longer hear it, but it should be enough to take the edge off. This viewer asks the question, do the earplugs with strings work the same or less? And they do work the same. The strings are on the outside of the hearing protection and not on the portion that goes inside of your ear canals. It's really just for retention purposes and making sure that if one falls out, you can grab it and put it back in again. So it won't matter. All right, the next user asks, what if you use hearing aids? Would you suggest taking them out and using a different hearing protection? I'd like to start off first by saying that hearing aids are not hearing protection. Let me repeat that. Hearing aids are not hearing protection. If you wear hearing aids and you are going to be in a loud or noisy environment that could present damaging levels of sound exposure to your ears, hearing aids come out, hearing protection goes in or goes on. Now, depending on how your hearing aids are set up and programmed for your hearing loss, some individuals will be able to get away with putting over-the-ear hearing protection on top of their hearing aids without having to take them out, without too much of a risk for feedback, that squeaking, squealing sound that could come out of hearing aids sometimes. However, other individuals, again, depending on how the hearing aids are set up and programmed for your hearing loss, doing that with over-the-ear protection may cause some of that feedback sound and might cause you to just want to take the hearing aids out and put foam protection in, or put the earmuffs back over your ears once the hearing aids are out. But you bring up a really great point, which is that a lot of people really do think that hearing aids do offer hearing protection. That is not the case, and you still need to wear your hearing protection even if you're a hearing aid user. In fact, perhaps even more if you're a hearing aid user, because you already know that you've got hearing loss, and we do not want that hearing loss to progress any faster than it needs to. All right, guys, that is it for this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share it with someone that you feel could use it. Now, like I said earlier, I sourced all of these questions from comments from our own videos. So make sure you leave questions when you have them. Drop them down in the comment section below. We get dozens, if not hundreds, of comments and questions every single day, and we always try to get back around to them if we can. So please ask away.